Hello, everyone. This is Han Feizi, and we're back this week after we talked about China's consumption last week. China's consumption last week, we were mostly attacking the problem from a data point of view to see if China's consumption is being misreported or not. This time around, we want to get more of a color on what China's consumption is like. And Mo he just returned from a trip to Shanghai. And I've been living in Beijing for the past couple of years. I'll hand it off to him. He'll just and describe what he has seen, and we'll try to compare notes.
Hi everyone. I just came back from Shanghai. And nowadays, I'm based in Hong Kong, but I travel to the two cities. One is Shanghai, one is Shenzhen. I think now I'm doing nearly once a month. So because I have some project going on in Shanghai, and also I get some clients in Shenzhen as well. This trip to Shanghai, I took a full Cathay. But one thing I found that just on the transportation, so not the flying part, but on the ground, I have I used to every time I land in Shanghai, so I used to take the taxi from airport to town. Um, I it's just a bit of context. So as I spent my childhood in China, so taking the public transportation, so back in the days, my experience previously was in the 70s and then in 90 as well. So when I travel back to China, also I get fair amount of experience about using public transportation. Um, Even up until 90s, so getting on a bus or train, it's not about comfort. It's a matter of if you can get on. So I
Yeah,
know.
we know how that worked.
Yeah, you basically have to squeeze yourself in, right? You have to elbow people, squeeze yourself in. So that usually is quite a battle about using the public transportation. So since start my working life, so when I travel back to China, I usually just take a taxi. I wouldn't bother about taking the public transportation because the question is not about comfort, right? It's the question about if we can get on. So the train, like subway, bus, so back then that was really so it's hard to get on. And then the train, so usually you cannot get ticket. So even if you try to buy ticket, so the queue to the window to buy ticket and all those, I mean, just the process of it. So it's very challenging. It's not just messy. I wouldn't use the word messy because it's you really have to elbow people. So you have to really get your way in. So that's really a battle. So I've been taking taxi, so, and then taxi from Shanghai airport to the city is when I started in the early millennium. Usually, I record that was below 100 RMB, and then the inflation kicked in gradually. So I think about 7 8 years ago when I also went back to China quite frequently, they get up to about 150. But recently it get up to over 200 RMB, right? That is the same level as Hong Kong in terms of the taxi fare. But maybe that's a slightly longer journey from the downtown in Shanghai to the Pudong airport. But then starting from the last couple of trips, I kind of venture into trying the subway. They have this subway number two from Shanghai airport to get to the Shanghai downtown. So I have a few findings. One is it's totally different experience. One is it's actually I could get to sit down, so it's not just a matter of getting on. The whole journey actually offered me a bit of comfort. So I could sit down and actually it's quite spacious. So it's unlike before there is a jam-packed train. It's not like that. And then
How do you compare that
another
to
thing,
how do you compare that to Airport Express in Hong Kong?
in fact, it's similar. So that the interior is different, right? So it's
Mm.
still it's a hard seat. It's like kind of iron seat.
Yep.
The Hong Kong one is kind of a semi sofa. Get a bit of cushion on the seat. I would say the Hong Kong Express is closer to what we seen in the train in US and Europe. Yeah, those passenger seat.
Yeah.
So you get to sit down and then the seat is quite comfortable. Basically, yeah, Hong Kong Express, no one stand up. So everyone get a seat. Yeah, but then the subway in Shanghai's Pudong Airport to downtown is similar to the subway in Hong Kong, because the Hong Kong Express, the airport express in Hong Kong is different from the regular subway in Hong Kong. So the regular subway in Hong Kong, so yeah, maybe similar to the subway in New York, maybe. Yeah, that kind of I
No,
mean,
no, no.
less
Yeah,
sophisticated.
yeah. You don't know about New York subway. New York subway is
Okay.
it's a different animal.
Okay, yeah, I know, yeah, I probably know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a passenger, the experience is very nice. And then the subways, I would say, it's not much slower than. I mean, I would say that the taxi, in terms of transit time, is not doesn't have a huge advantage comparing to the subway. So since last time, so now this time I took a subway. Not only did I took a subway, so I even use just even in switch over. The last time I have this point to point direct without having to switch over to another subway. This time I switch over a couple of times. It's actually quite easy. So that's one. The second point to make is the cost is just it just some things for me it's just eye opening or just totally different thing from what I'm used to. In Hong Kong, the airport express we had to pay 100 Hong Kong dollars. That's around like 13 US dollars, right? So if we take the taxi from airport to downtown, so that would cost us. So you can call some of the discount taxi, but the full fare would be a bit less than 300 Hong Kong dollars. That would be somewhere around 40 US. So from $13 to 40 US dollars from train to taxi. That's the situation in Hong Kong. But in China, so in Shanghai, so the taxi is yeah about 230, 240. So that actually is actually 35 US dollars for taxi. So not much different from Hong Kong. But the train itself will drop to below $1. So it
Really?
costs just 6 RMB. Yes,
It's a
6
6 RMB
RMB
fare. Oh, okay.
yeah, 6 RMB fare relative to comparing to taxi is 230. So I mean two angle to it. So in this matter, one is yes, now so the public transportation is very comfortable. I think that that translates into a huge improvement, right, for a lot of people's day-to-day life. That I mean, they on the public transportation, so they could get to sit down. The second one is the cost is so low, right? It's so economical. Everyone could afford it. Then of course there's huge element of government subsidy. I'm sure the 6 RMB journey, 6 RMB ticket fares cannot really cover the cost of running the subway, even for the line number 2, although that one is a very popular line. So one angle is, I mean, the good side of it is good quality at a low price. But then another angle to it as I mean, as Hanfei, as talking to an economist like you, so then I also would bring you to think about, wow, the wealth disparity in China must be so wide. So that's why still a lot of people need such a big subsidy to be able to so to commute. So that's two angles to it. So and then the third thing is in the public transportation system until today, it still involves a fair amount of security check. That's unusual in anywhere that I have gone to. Yeah, so in the sense, Shanghai I think still a bit better. So it just gone to you have to put your bag through some sort of X-ray for them to scan it.
Beijing is like that as well. And it's really odd because they do look at your bag, and once in a while they'll find something that they like they confiscated an aerosol can from my wife once.
Oh,
but most of the time they just kind of wave you through. It's largely for show, but once in a while they do find something, and they do make themselves annoying. But yeah, that is something odd that China does have. They have not only do they have this little station where they have metal detectors and when you put your bag through, they also have this thing where it's a bomb a bomb deposit urn. Have you seen that? I'm sure they have that in Shanghai as well.
yeah.
If they find a bomb, you put it in that thing and close it.
What is it? From
By
the back, you mean?
Nope. In every subway station, in the security check, by the security check, if you look around, you will
Yeah,
see this big urn, this big metal thing. It's like a cylinder. It's like the size
yeah.
of a barrel. Um, what it is a bomb deposit device.
So you could put something in and that thing would check
No, no,
the
no. It's
composite
if
of your object.
no, it's if they find a bomb, they put it in there so it can be easily disposed of. So if it it explodes inside
Oh,
that
really?
thing. Yeah,
For the bomb. How
yeah.
often do people carry a bomb to the
I
subway?
think like never. I probably like in all of China probably there goes because there had been incidents about 15, 20 years ago where there were explosives that were set off in China by
But that
separatists and stuff. So then it was mandated that I guess was mandated that in all of Beijing subway security checks has that thing. Even though
mm,
I suspect it's just for show, as in you can use it if they ever find something, but it just shows don't try it because
mm,
so it's
right,
mostly
right. Yeah, for that, yeah, but for that kind of like terrorist act, right? So it's not like we don't have it in New York and London, right?
yeah,
Hong Kong maybe not, yeah.
yeah. I
But
never seen that
I
in
don't
Hong
see
Kong.
New York and London.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but I don't see New York and London, so require X-ray scan or that kind of thing, for the subway ride. Right? So that's one. That yeah, that's been around. So that kind of security checks been around. But also have a fair amount of I don't know. You feel that I feel like in subway in most of the subway station I went to in mainland there are a fair amount of kind of a metal bars everywhere. So like the metal bar or the kind of structure that actually kind of help to keep people in line, I guess.
Oh yeah,
Um,
there's
yeah,
people herding things. It just keeps the line flowing in the right direction.
yeah, something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
but it's just the security and people's management is more kind of iron and steel, so very cold.
yeah, yeah,
So, yeah,
yeah.
to what I'm used to, just like just more kind of the Hong Kong subways. Mostly, I would call generally passenger friendly environment. Right? It's not like
Yeah.
they are guarding against us, but yeah, there's a bit of element that they have to have a lot of structure that guard against people. It's
Mm,
not just a people; they just welcome people to let you use it, that kind of thing.
mm.
But I mean, it's just a touchy feely thing. So, but the overall experience, the subway ride is very comfortable. So, that's one in the subway. The second one's in terms of yeah, I think everyone know about a kind of super app in China. So you use it for all sort of things. The subway ride also, we don't need to buy a ticket as long as you get this Alipay or WeChat. So then you can show the QR code for the public transportation that come out of the kind of app for yourself. So basically, the QR code is your own ticket or your personal identity facing all this kind of public transportation company, right? As long as they scan the QR code, then they have a way to charge you for money without you having to buy a ticket or use cash. So yeah, that's very convenient, and the app also translate to, I mean, could be used in many different things, including calling a taxi, even paying hotels, like meal and everything. So, so yeah, yeah, subway journeys are my recent discovery. And other ones, I forget if I mentioned it in our previous call. Is really the hotel stay. In in China, I used to say in my professional life, I used to stay in mostly the brand name hotel.
Mm.
That's Hyatt and also. Can we mention the commercial brands here?
Yeah, you can.
It's okay, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not
Okay.
stopping you.
Like typically, right? So those are higher Sheratons and all these typical Western brand hotels. I think that also start from my experience from the 90s. When I travel to China, if I don't stay in this kind of Western brand, usually local brands, then we call it Zhao Daishuo or some sort of kind of a motel standard for US, maybe even some of them even worse. But now the the last 2 years, when I traveled back to China, the hotel that I stayed in is not Western brands. I stayed in once in Guangzhou, we call 传记酒店. I think it's a bit of kind of taking the name from the Four Seasons, not Four Seasons, but its name literally means all season instead of Four Seasons.
Okay.
This is an all-season hotel.
Yeah.
The facility inside, I would compare it with the Ibis in the Western world. So like kind of neat and tidy, basic stuff. Very clean bed, clean towels, like strong shower. So very nice. And this time in Shanghai, I stay in this hotel called Sunrise on the Bund. So I'm sure that none of us have heard about it. It's not even a brand. So Sunrise on the Bund I stay there because a lot of company that I visit or I'm dealing with nowadays are mostly the shipping company. And all the shipping company in Shanghai are nearby this hotel. So I usually just stay in that hotel. And that hotel, I pay only about 100 US. And then it's a huge room, nice floor. So the floor, I like the hotel with the wooden floor instead of carpet. So you feel clean on it. And then the bed and shower and all these things. If I compare my experience traveling in the US, that hotel just like any other like big chains, the big brand name or five-star hotel in the US, they charge only 100 in a big city, in a tier one city in China.
Yeah, I mean the
competition.
Supposedly Shanghai has the lowest price for, I forgot what hotel chain, either Hyatt or Shangri-La or Mandarin or one of those. But because of competition,
really,
that for example, that the hotel you stayed at, it has brought down the price across the board. Even among the name brand hotels, it's I wouldn't say cheap, but the cheapest in the world.
I think so. Well,
it's across a lot
the
of
level hotel in New York.
Yeah.
In New York, this kind of hotel easily cost you 500, like 5 times.
Yeah,
that's what we pay in Shanghai. So that's the amazing part about it, right? Because Shanghai nowadays, it's actually it's a very developed, very sophisticated city. So like all the stuff that we that we use when we travel is in the Western world, so very similar. So the restaurant and then the building, so the office, so the roads, like all the infrastructure. So it's actually very well developed.
Yeah,
but then the price is still
Yeah, when my wife and I were traveling, not for business, but for personal, we were driving around Shandong and Hebei, and then we never worried about. I used to worry about traveling around China, getting stuck somewhere and having to stay in some janky, nasty ass hotel. But now we never worry about that. We just go on some app, and we can always pull up something that's cheap and nice. The other thing is like what we do a lot now is an Airbnb style hotels, not hotels, but somebody's home. That's a big way, that a very popular way to travel these days.
Okay, now I mentioned about the way to commute and then the stay. So maybe you talk a bit about your own experience in these two regards, right?
So Beijing, I've been here a couple of years, and I lived here 22 years ago, 1999, 2001, and there was only two subway lines. The one line that goes to the middle, and the number 2 line, which is a circle around. Now they call it the spider web. Every last inch of the city is pretty much covered by the subway. It's totally cheap. It's the most expensive fare I think I ever got charged is, I don't know, something like 15 RMB. That's like $2. So, and then what was that?
Wow, I mean, Beijing has a ticket fare up to 15. Because Shanghai, it seems to me they cap it at 6. Like 6 is the max you could pay. It's quite a very long journey.
Yeah, in Beijing, I think if I'm not mistaken, 7 is the minimum. So it actually goes up from 7.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I never really check because it's so little. I don't even look.
Right.
And the other thing, we would take the high-speed rail. High-speed rail, you just get there, 15 minutes before the train takes off, and then you can whip around China just about anywhere. And it's a new way to travel. It's super convenient nowadays, and people don't even think about before. When you take a trip to the neighboring province or a couple provinces over, you would plan that thing for like months. But now you can decide like 2 days before. I feel like going to Shandong, right? So and just go.
And you never experienced any problem on a high-speed train?
I have never. The only problems I experience is I would get nervous around peak holiday season whether I can get a ticket.
Okay.
So, but that's only around peak holiday season that I would get nervous. I don't know. I don't remember ever having a problem with it. There was one time where I had to buy a ticket that took longer. That the route gets routed around, and I had to do a transfer. But I never quite had a problem where I just couldn't get anywhere.
But the journey took longer, so it's still just based on what they sold to you, right? Because when you bought the ticket, you know that you are not going direct, so they're making some transit somewhere. So
Yeah,
what you mean?
yeah.
Or that was a surprise?
It wasn't. I guess it wasn't a surprise. It was just that during busy seasons, sometimes direct routes aren't available, right? Just like planes.
I see. So yeah, basically when you bought a ticket, you know that there wasn't a direct route that you're buying. So you know that it's
Yeah,
route
correct.
differently.
Correct.
Okay,
correct.
you knew it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do have I had one experience taking the high-speed train from Guangzhou back to Hong Kong. So yeah, it gets very seriously delayed. So
Yeah,
and
okay.
that is that's a rare for I think from my understanding, high-speed train from Japan is usually is super on time because they
Right.
cannot be not on time because that would be a safety issue if the train's not running on time.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey,
So yeah,
tell me about this. This is what I've been reading about in the past couple of years that I have left
yeah.
since I left Hong Kong. Supposedly, and you tell me how true this is, and maybe add some color, that people in Hong Kong now, not all, but the thing to do on the weekends is to go to Shenzhen.
I think that is true. So although I myself I haven't really done much. So
Uh-huh.
actually, I never really went to Shenzhen just for the weekend. But my sister have done it multiple times.
Uh-huh.
Only one sister. So and then I have heard people around me. So yeah, they do go back to for just for the weekends because the quality indeed is very good. So the quality of service, the restaurants are more spacious. So they have the same quality of food. So that the high end food or the middle level. So it's not. No one concerned about the food safety issue. So and actually the food quality is obviously very good. And then the price is much lower. From what I heard from my sisters, generally, the like same level restaurants. Usually they will go to some nicer restaurant, although not fine dining level, but still good restaurant that use good ingredient. That the price usually is around like 30% cheaper than Hong Kong. And then I don't know if Shenzhen is similar to Shanghai with that kind of good quality hotel at a low fare. So then I think that might also entice Hong Kong people to stay overnight. Yeah, that has been the Hong Kong's retailers are blaming that the loss of business to just because a lot of the local residents from Hong Kong they don't stay in Hong Kong for the weekend. So yeah, that news is I think it's quite true.
And I also heard, and this kind of knocked me out of my seat. Now I hear that there are people in Hong Kong who go to Shenzhen, like a Shenzhen Best Buy, to buy their supplies, their groceries, and their household items like toilet paper and tissues and whatnot.
Yeah, that's a reverse because
Has that
in
happened? So
Shenzhen,
it is happening.
yes, there are news about it, that people actually doing it, but it's not as common as like myself or
Right.
people like my sisters doing it. So I think from what I heard from my sister, so they're just going there to kind of eat and sightseeing. But then I have the Shenzhen shopping things. I do believe there's an angle because in Shenzhen or in China they have a certain retailers that they only exist in China or Shenzhen, but not in Hong Kong. For example, Costco, like the Sam's Club, the
Sam's Club,
Walmart.
yeah.
So yeah, so they have some of those big international chain, because it's
Mm,
international chain. So it kind of the foreign chains or the foreign brand give items in those shops some sort of quality assurance, right?
mm,
So then plus, so in Hong Kong we don't have this kind of wholesale price at the retail shop, right?
mm.
So yeah, that the we do. Yeah, I've seen many news clip or story about Hong Kong people going back there to this kind of big store to shop, and then they shop it for maybe a lot of their friends. So although they buy things in big lot, in Hong Kong we don't buy things in big lot because one of the handicap in Hong Kong, so most of our residential situations, that apartments not very
Mm,
spacious, right?
right.
So the per capita square foot is actually, I think, maybe one of the lowest in the world in Hong Kong.
Right.
So they don't tend to buy too many stuff to store at home for the lower price. But then they could buy that kind of things in a big quantity. If there are many friends also want to buy those things at the same time, then one person go there to buy it and then come back to Hong Kong, share with a bunch of friends. So I think that might be possible. That's also true. It
Yes.
used to be just
Yeah.
before COVID. So they are complaining about too many mainlanders that come to Hong Kong to buy toilet paper.
Yeah. Well, for listeners out there, people who people in Hong Kong for about a decade and a half were complaining about people from the mainland coming over the border to buy things in Hong Kong. For whatever reason, one of the main is they don't trust the quality in mainland China. But now the reverse has happened, and it's just somewhat humorous when I read stories about it.
Yeah, that indeed, yeah. That is true, but it may not be so common that the shopping in China totally replace the grocery shopping in Hong Kong.
Yes,
So,
yes,
but
yeah.
I do see, yeah, I do see the kind of qualities doesn't seem to be a big concern for people going there to shop. There are indeed some people go back to China to go to the Sam's Club, go to Costco to shop.
So when you're traveling in
Mm,
Shanghai, what do you think
mm.
of the pricing for? We talked about the hotel and the taxi. What about like restaurant meals and whatever you do, things that you might buy?
Right. Okay, just get into the actual experience, right?
Uh-huh.
So I like to in Shanghai. I like to go to this one shops called. It's just one of our friends. That friend you also know. So he suggests me to. He's from Shanghai. He suggests me to go to try this restaurant called. It's like Jia Jia. So like kind of yeah, literally mean good family. So anyway, so the shop serve very traditional, the Shanghainese kind of a daily food.
Mhm.
Not elaborated stuff, so, but it's just like the xiaolongbao, those the dumpling,
Yep.
the noodle.
Is it
Um,
comparable? Is it comparable to Crystal Jade in Hong Kong?
Even more simple, so
Even more simple.
less
Okay.
choices.
Okay.
Yeah, more focused in just a couple of things, just as like the soup dumpling and then the noodle.
Hmm.
The quality is very good. But then for the price, I think it's comparable to Hong Kong. I wouldn't say they are much cheaper because the per capita consumption is even okay. It depends. I think for the noodle and the dumpling, you can get away with maybe about like 40, so within 50 RMB. So but it's noodle and dumpling, right? So it's kind of really simple one person meal. Um, um, 50 RMB is similar to 60. So okay, that's similar to Hong Kong. But then there one more slightly more nicer dish is which is they use the crab eggs to mix with the noodle.
Okay. Right.
The noodles basically it's not soup noodle, it's served like a pasta.
Hmm.
But instead of like in the Italian pasta, you have bolognese, so like the tomato sauce with some meat, ground meat. So, but instead of that, the whole sauce, the entire sauce for that noodle is basically the crab, so the crab eggs, the yellowish thing
Hmm.
from the
Yeah.
crab. So
Yeah.
it's a very rich, creamy type of things. But I'm sure one bowl noodle it may use maybe 4 or 5 crab, right?
Yeah.
So to make that noodle. So that one, so you will have to pay up to 100 RMB,
Oh wow.
100 or maybe slightly over
Yeah.
100. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that that is the pricey item in the shop's menu. But the shops are very clean, nice and clean, although it's not a big restaurant. So the quality of service, yeah, you could say comparing to Crystal J or maybe some Westerners in their city, they know about these shops from Taiwan, the Din Tai Fung, right? The Din Tai Fung. So they sell their shops are now around the world. So maybe some of the people in different places don't also have experienced that. So yeah, that's the restaurant that I usually, if just myself to just get a quick meal, I would just go there. And then, but for the very elaborated meals, they are not cheaper. So the very like some they also have a lot of a restaurant, but are not super high end, but also in a very high level of service. So I would think their service similar to some of the Chinese restaurant that you have in the big shopping mall in Hong Kong, like the Ye Shanghai in PP, or some of the restaurant that we have just around Central in those shop like Landmark, that kind of places. They're similar level of services. So and then the prices, those places you can, for one dish, you probably have to pay up to, it could be over 100, but maybe still cheaper than Hong Kong. Because Hong Kong usually for slightly more elaborated dish, in a nice restaurant, sometimes it could be up to 150, 200, right? So, but in China, you still have, because comparing the prices, then because the price range for even restaurant in Hong Kong very wide, right?
Yeah.
So what I consider to be nice may not be considered to be so nice by our listener.
Yeah.
So that's a thing that hard to verbally talk about. I think we need to have some video or photo eventually.
Yeah.
Then people say, okay, so that will look nice, and then that price is cheap or expensive. Then people will make a judgment.
We need to do, you know how The Economist has
Yeah.
a Big Mac index.
Yeah.
They already done this for Hong Kong and Shanghai and China, but we need to do a Haidi Lao index.
Haidi Lao.
Because there's Haidi Lao in Hong Kong, right?
The hot pot, yeah.
Yeah, the hot pot. So that supposedly has the same level of service all over the world. So
yeah.
But
what do you think though? So I mean, from moving from you lived in Hong Kong for more than 10 years.
Yeah.
And then for
15,
your like dining experience in Beijing, so how do you compare? So in terms of price and quality, and type of food also,
I see Beijing as much cheaper than Hong Kong, but I also heard that Beijing is much cheaper than Shanghai. So it might be that Shanghai is on the expensive end of the first tier cities for things like dining. I just but I haven't been to Shanghai enough to do to get a mental picture on pricing. So I do know things in Beijing are much cheaper than Hong Kong, like less than half for something comparable.
For Han Fei and your wife, what type of restaurant that you usually go to just for a simple meal? So just on the day that you guys don't want to cook, so instead of going to a fancy place, but it's just instead of cooking.
Yeah, so there is just about any mall in Beijing now, any mall that is relatively new, and there are hundreds of them all over the city. There will be a couple floors entirely dedicated to restaurants. And in those restaurants, the choice just makes your eyes kind of go in spirals. They're all trying to outdo each other with their decor and their menu. So it's pretty much like medium end stuff, but because the competition is so intense, it feels higher end than the pricing suggests. As in, you can have a great meal out of there for 200 RMB for two people. That's 100 with leftovers. 100 per person. So it's all kinds of stuff from 水煮鱼, which is fish cooked in hot oil. 酸菜鱼, there's all kinds of fads that goes around. For a while, 酸菜鱼, which is like sour cabbage and fish, would be very popular. There's a frog restaurant in that complex. There's
frog
frog legs.
Frog leg.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Like the grab,
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of stuff.
yeah. Froglet.
Green, jumpy green stuff, right? Okay,
Yeah, yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah. But I think I haven't gone in there, but I think if you go in there, you can see them
Yeah.
live. Um, so
Oh,
yeah. And then there are Western restaurants as well. There's and then there's buffets. So in China, the restaurant in the at least in Beijing, the competition is extremely intense for medium end restaurants. And then you have your side of the road kind of stuff where there's a lot of Shaokao, right? And that can be cheaper.
oh,
And then there's like noodle shops that can be much cheaper as well. And then I do a lot of McDonald's and Kentucky Fried Chicken because that's just the kind of guy I am.
American.
Yes, I need that.
They used to have a TGI in Beijing when I lived there, so that's my favorite place.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to it. I gotta check to see if that thing is still around. Um,
Yeah, nearby San Juan, so nearby the Yansha area, so TGI Friday.
yes,
So,
yes.
so yeah, they're fajitas. Yeah, so
There's a,
in the 90s. Yeah.
I think it started in either Beijing or Shanghai. I think it's Beijing. Beijing's version of TGIF or China's version is Blue Frog. It's a Western restaurant. It's a Western restaurant, and it was started
Oh,
by
okay.
expats like 25 years ago. And now it's your basic TGIF burger joint with beer and sports on TV, that kind of place. And that will run you
Awesome.
I'm trying to figure out the pricing here. That will run you over 200 RMB per person. For the two of us, over 200, but not 300. I would be surprised if we would eat there for 300, and this includes like a couple beers.
Oh, pretty good deal.
Yeah, 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 it's a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
Uh, so so I don't know if Shanghai just happens to be more expensive than Beijing, but I did find that in Beijing, for the comparable thing to Hong Kong, it's less than half. About half, a little less, maybe 40% of the price in Hong Kong.
I Okay, I think for listeners, I think your sample may be more reliable than mine because yeah, because my impression or my experience is kind of occasionally like that I go to China, so, and I
Mm,
usually like what I mentioned in Shanghai, I tend to go to the same restaurant instead of really exploring so all different type of
mm,
restaurants to make that comparison. But you have seen many different type of restaurant in Beijing to make that comparison. You also stay a long time, spend a long time in Hong Kong.
yeah.
So yeah, you're more sensitive to the price differences.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
what I do
Mm.
know about the restaurants in Beijing is that the competition is so intense that and everybody is super slaves to uh, the reviews on China's version of Yelp, which is 大众点评. So
Mm.
if you put in a bad review, this restaurant would reach out to you and offer you free things. So
Really?
yeah,
That,
yeah,
that's good and bad actually. Yeah,
it
I
is.
know
It is.
nowadays they're so kind of so giving in terms of service. So, but it usually when I first I mean when I traveled to China as a tourist at the first time in the 90s, so it's actually hard to get
Yeah,
the people in shop to help you.
yeah. People won't pay
No,
attention to you.
people in
Yeah,
the no, people like the waitress in the restaurant. So if I ask them for some utensil, like oh, I need one more pair for chopstick, they will use their eye to kind of show me to where that I can pick up the chopstick myself instead of like using word. They just use the eye and the
yeah,
head to just swing to somewhere to ask, kind of show me that you have to pick it up yourself.
yeah. That's
But
been the
nowadays,
yeah.
they're so giving in their service.
Yeah, it's good and bad in a couple ways. One,
Yeah,
it's good for the consumer because we get
yeah,
much better service. In some ways, it's just a lot harder to be a service person. You can't just sit there and have a bad attitude. You have to be on your toes. But then
yeah.
somebody explained it to me. The customers are nicer as well, as in 20 years ago, uh, because everybody's yelling and screaming in a restaurant. Yeah, the customer's barking orders at the waitress. The waitress is sitting there having a bad attitude and even yelling back. So that was your typical consumer experience in China circa late 90s, early 2000s. Um, but now,
Mm.
even though the waitresses and the waiters are working really hard and really have to be on their toes, the customers aren't so rude and demanding and yelling and screaming like before. So
Right. Okay. Yeah. Then that's better, sir. Because I do. Yeah. But I think so. What I've seen sometimes the YouTube about the bad manner from the customers in mainland. So maybe those are the rarity. So instead
yeah,
of a common situation.
yeah,
So because when I think I'm slightly more sympathetic nowadays because I used to consider most of the people working in the restaurant in China, they usually come with a bad attitude.
yeah,
That's my experience 20 years ago. But
yeah.
now my sympathy kind of shift to the workers. I just hope that they're being nicer, not because the customer become more aggressive. So, good to hear what you from your observation.
Yeah, I
So
think just the service as a product, service as something that people will you know will patronize a restaurant is a huge thing in China. Whereas 25 years ago, you didn't have a choice. There was only a few restaurants you could go to, so they can get away with
mm,
really bad service. But now, and especially that they're judged all the time by ratings in Dazhong that it's gone a little bit overboard. There was this one hotel we went to Yunnan one year. There was one hotel we stayed at, and we gave them perfect marks for like across 5 items except one, where we gave them 4 stars out of 5 because it says is a location, and it wasn't even their fault, just their location. The location was a little bit to the edge of
mm,
of that compound of that, and then we said, so it gets 4 stars. And then right when we submitted it, my wife's phone rings and it's the owner saying, can you remove that 4 stars? We'll do this and this and this for you. So I said, well,
wow.
it's 4 stars. We're saying you're very good.
Yeah,
But
the power of a consumer is just nowadays in China just yes, I mean so strong comparing to what it was before.
yeah,
But
so
I mean, as a person looking at the economics, right? Wouldn't you think that this kind of a shift in power from provider to consumer, so and also what you point out is that the fierce competition among the service provider,
mm,
so yeah, then it kind of yeah make the life or make the business very difficult, right?
there's two ways to think about this.
Yeah,
It's what I think is happening, which is all good, or in general good, which is the supply curve is shifting out. So when the supply curve is shifting out, then you have more producers and they're all competing with each other. So quantity
yeah,
increases and also quality increases. To me, quality and quantity are more or less the same thing.
yeah,
That's the supply curve shifting out. And then price decreases, right? If the
yeah,
demand doesn't shift with it, then price decreases. But overall, it's better for everyone. The
yeah.
consumer surplus increases and your producer surplus might fall, but it's more than offset by the increase in your consumer surplus. The other thing,
The other thing, yeah.
the other thing that might be happening, but I don't think that's the case, is that the demand curve is shifting in. If the demand curve is shifting in, then prices
Mm.
fall, less is produced, less is consumed, and then the suppliers are fighting tooth and nail to keep every last customer.
That's the general impression about the demand curve shifting inward.
Yes, but that's where I don't
Yeah,
agree that's happening. I think what's happening in China is a supply curve is shifting out. So the deflation
mm,
that you see in China, the deflation can be captured in many ways. One is prices falling, and then we do see prices not exactly falling, but every place else, like Europe and US and everywhere else, suffered like 20-25% inflation over the past 3-4 years. But China's inflation over the past 3-4 years was like low single digits. Prices didn't really change, even though everything has gotten much better in quality in the past 3 or 4 years. Um, so that to me is saying the supply curve is shifting out. When
but
Japan,
yeah.
go ahead, go ahead. See, when Japan
You
suffered,
finish your Japan point. Yeah,
yeah, okay,
yeah. Go ahead.
when Japan's bubble burst in the 90s, in the early 90s, it was the most expensive economy in the world. There was ridiculous stories about cantaloupe selling in Tokyo for over $100, and this is $100 US in the 1990s. And then the bubble burst, and all of a sudden people didn't have money anymore, and it was the demand curve shifted in, and that's what caused a lot of the deflation. Suddenly people wasn't throwing around money like crazy like before. China has been and continues to be the cheapest economy in the world. It didn't go through a phase where everything was ridiculously expensive. So the deflation you're seeing is it's not like demand curve is shifting in where they were spending money like crazy and suddenly they're not. It's more, life is just more difficult for businesses because there's so many more businesses competing for the same amount of customers. So they're producing more, lowering the price, increasing the quality, and demand is having a hard time keeping up, matching the shift in the supply curve. But it's not that the demand is moving backwards.
Right. Well, it could be both too, right? It could be a bit of supply curves shifting out and then demand curve also
Yes,
shifting in a little
yes,
bit.
that could be. That could be. But then I'm comparing the quantities of things sold, right? Then you just say how many cars are being sold, how many TVs and phones, and all of that is increasing, right? Especially if you look at the cars, not only is the quantity increasing, like the units sold, but the quality of the car, as in the average car today, cost 26,000 US dollars. And that buys you something along the lines of a BYD Han, which is a pretty, it's bigger than a Tesla Model 3. And it's somewhere along the line. Even BMWs now are discounted so much that that's the average car in China now, a BMW 3 Series, just because no one wants to buy them. They've been so much. Dealers give massive discounts on them. Whereas 4 years ago, before the price wars, less cars were sold, and for the average car, you were getting a Toyota Corolla. The average car sold 4 years ago in China was something like a Toyota Corolla. But now the average car sold in China is like a BMW 3 Series or a BYD Han, and they're selling, about 10-15% more than they did 4 years ago. So
Right.
that tells me it's a supply curve shifting out rather than the demand curve shifting in.
Yeah. Just for the listeners, the supply curve is basically the chart that you're talking about, the price against quantity, right? The price on the y-axis, and then the quantity in the x-axis. Then the supply curve actually start low and then go upward from basically from left to right, right? The demand curve start high and then go downward, right? So when the supply, okay.
So that's my theory of what's happening in China. There's a lot of discussion on whether China and Japan are China just repeating what happened to Japan in the early 90s. I think there's a lot of superficial similarities. The primary similarity is that the bubble burst on real estate. But everything else, China is actually at the point of Japan in the 1970s.
No, population, it's the same.
What do you mean population? As in,
it's China's Asian population. Wouldn't you?
Yes. So those
see that as similar to 90s in Japan.
Similar. So China's population is at it started declining at an earlier point than Japan's, but the demographic thing that I care more about than absolute population is the college educated population. So the college educated population in Japan plateaued in the mid 70s, as in the production of the graduation of college students plateaued in the mid 70s. And then it just flatlined all the way till today. China is plateauing right now. It's like a 45-degree line that goes up, and it's plateauing right now. So that's matches where Japan was in the mid 70s. So it will take China another 15, 20 years to reach more or less peak or steady state, fully educated workforce. So there's a lot more runway left, even though the difference is that the similarity is that the population peak and the falling birth rates happened earlier in its industrial upgrading process. So the two things that are
Right.
the two things that are similar is the population, the birth rates, and the bursting of the property market. The things that are different is that China is still just plateauing in the educated population that happened in Japan in the 1970s. And also different is that when Japan's bubble burst, they were the most expensive economy in the world. When China's property market, it didn't even crash on its own. The government, popped that bubble on purpose. China was and remains the cheapest economy in the world. So can you really even deflate any further and become even cheaper?
Hang on. So,
Yeah.
China is still one of the cheapest places because it has a large population of cheap labor, right? Basically, so a lot of manpower is actually being offered in a low price. So hence, I mean, the point about that the supply curve is shifting outward.
Yeah.
So, I mean, offering more quantity, right? So, and a lot of those are actually quantity in terms of service. They all require manpower.
Yes, that's true.
So there's a one point, but then there's a population. That part of the population is certainly declining. Right? If the mix of higher education population is growing, as you point out.
So what you would expect is that what you would expect if that were happening, and I do expect that to happen over the course of 10 years out, is that inflation starts coming back. But right now, from what I see, it's still more and more productivity is still increasing so fast that you're having deflation. You're producing more with less.
But the productivity for services is hard to increase, right? So it has to increase with manpower, wouldn't it? Especially when we talk about restaurants and all these things.
Yeah. It increases with manpower. It increases with operating efficiency. I think China is still in the early stages of that. Just like you said, like 20 years ago, when you go to a restaurant, the waitress is just standing there, rolling her eyes at your requests, right? So now that same waitress is running around serving 5 tables.
And then more waitress than before, maybe.
It could be. Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, then that require higher population to do it. So when the population of lower educated ones are dropping, so then wouldn't.
Well,
I don't know.
But that's exactly my point. We're not seeing it, right? We're not seeing the inflation. Otherwise, we would be seeing inflation in the service sector.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. So to me, the economy
make the business harder to sustain. Maybe that would make the business harder to sustain. To sustain.
In the long term, I suspect that China will start having manpower issues. But right now, we don't yet see it in the numbers. We just see production increasing. We see prices falling. We don't see that there's still an unemployment problem for the youth. So if it was,
there is. Yeah.
Well, supposedly,
and those are the educated one.
Yeah. So what happened is they have educated so many people so quickly. They increase the university population so fast that these people who are graduated, which 20 years ago would have worked in a factory, or some of the lower tier university would have worked in a factory or would have worked service jobs, now don't want to take those jobs because they expect to work in an office somewhere. So that's almost like, quote unquote, a good problem to have, where these people lounge around and are semi-employed for a couple years, and then before shit hits the fan, they really can't handle it. They really have to find a job. So the youth unemployment up to age 24, it looks high because a lot of these people they're not satisfied with the jobs that are out there. But by the time they hit 25 and they're no longer youth, the unemployment rate drops like a rock, because then they'll take whatever job is out there. If you walk around China, you'll find that if youth unemployment is so high, how come every single store, coffee shop, restaurant, boba tea shop has a help wanted sign outside? Just nobody wants to work there.
We need to.
Yeah, we need to wrap it up.
Continue another time.
I think these couple of episodes we covered a lot of consumption from both a numbers perspective and also from just a feels perspective. But when we chat next, we'll talk about other topics.
Maybe like the population point that you point out, like the ascending college educated population.
Yes.
Relative to a potential descending the blue collar.
Yes, that would be very interesting. So let's cover that next week.
Yeah. And then the employment opportunities available in China to the general people, general public.
Yep.
So, yes. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
I think it's good.
We will leave it here, and then we will see everybody next couple of weeks.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.